What's up, champions? BananaCrapshoot here. Wanted to do a short video complimenting an article I'm writing for tomorrow. A lot of this will probably be rehashed, but I drive around for work a lot and I'm still working, so I figured I'd do some like vlogs for everybody. And the one I want to talk about today is generating advantages against the villains, whether that's card advantage or resource advantage. It's all essentially resource advantage, right? Because Marvel Champions, every card in your hand is a resource to pay for other cards or effects or abilities. Other recent games I've played somewhat seriously are the Dragon Ball Super card game and Star Wars Destiny, right? So in Dragon Ball Super, every round you get one card from your hand that you can place in your energy area, and you use that energy to pay for cards. Star Wars Destiny, you get 2 resources at the beginning of every round that you can use to pay for cards, upgrades, events, supports. And then also Star Wars Destiny had a dice component, and you could resolve those dice to gain more resources, right? So in Star Wars Destiny, the way, when I played competitively, was from like Way of the Force set up and through Spark of Hope. And there was one character, which was Snoke, that could set up crazy resource advantages with his ability to power action to resolve a die for +2. So you get 1 resource, and all of a sudden you power action it with Snoke and you get 3 resources. It's a pretty busted ability. He was nerfed twice and he was still relevant in the meta. So that was one way to gain advantage. Star Wars Destiny was just resource advantage to play bomb supports. Another deck that was fairly consistently good was a deck that would gain card advantage. In Star Wars Destiny, you can have a 5-card hand, right? So what you start with, you play cards from your hand. At the end of the round, you draw back up to 5 before you start the next round. Afra could draw X amount of cards around when she dealt indirect damage to herself. So Afra was always pretty decent because she could always gain that card advantage. And then Snoke was always relevant because, well, until his power action was nerfed, because he could gain insane resource advantage. Right, so how does that equate to Marvel Champions? Well, Marvel Champions, we draw back up to our hand size at the end of the player phase before the villain phase begins. That's normally 5 or 6 cards, depending what form you're in, and what hero you're using could sometimes be 4. So you're using those 4 to 6 cards to pay for other cards in your hand. So ways we can generate advantage in Marvel Champions, one way is through cards. Characters that have... Does anybody have a draw effect? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Can't think off the top of my head while I'm driving and trying to focus on the road. If anybody has a built-in card draw mechanic, well, Captain Marvel does. She can, in Alter Ego, she can draw a card, and in Hero, she can pay an energy resource to heal 1 to draw a card. A lot of the hero supports will deal with card draw. Captain America with Steve's apartment can heal 1 to draw a card. I'm sure there's others I'm forgetting, but that's just off the top of my head. That's one way to gain advantages with card draw. Other cards we can use on the table to draw us cards, supports like Avengers Mansion, Steve's apartment, Alpha Flight Station. When you're in Alter Ego, that's a 1 for 2 proposition there. So those cards gain card advantage. So more cards in your hand means you can play out more cards from your hand, or more expensive cards in your hand. And another way is through just straight resource advantage. and that's things like Helicarrier that reduce the cost of a card. Cards like Web Shooter, you pay 1 and you have 3 resources on that. Genius, Strength, and Energy, the resource cards that give you 2. Black Panther and Captain Marvel have it built in with energy absorption and vibranium. They have those additional high resource cards in their hero decks. The enhanced resource cards, enhanced physique, awareness, and reflexes. Those cards are good ways to gain resource advantage, and it all essentially is resource advantage. So God of Thunder, Super Strength, or Super Soldier Serum are another 2 good ways to build resource advantage. So when you're playing your game and you're building your decks, and you, especially early game, are playing against a villain, and you're trying to gain that advantage, right? I prioritize those high efficiency cards and the cards that gain me resource advantage throughout the game. So if I'm playing Avengers Mansion or Helicarrier, I want to see those early, first 2 rounds. If I'm playing Thor or Captain America, I want to see God of Thunder or Super Soldier Serum. You want to see those cards that gain you X amount of resources, free resources throughout the game, because then you can play out bigger stuff. So if you're playing Thor, for instance, and you don't see Asgard, right, which would make his hand size normal compared to most of the other heroes. So if you don't see that, you're stuck at 4 on your hero side. But if you have 2 God of Thunders out, that's like having almost a 6-card hand, because you have 2 free resources sitting there every turn. And then if you have Asgard out, you have then you're sitting at 5 cards in hero, so it's like you have a 7-card hand. It's not exactly like that, because certain cards, you know, like Genius can give you 2 resources, but for most instances, 1 card equals 1 resource most of the time, right? So if you have this free resources sitting on the table, that is effectively increasing your hand size, because you can play out more cards in your hand more effectively. Tony Stark Iron Man was another one I forgot of earlier, talking about card draw, right? Because Futurist, you can look at 3, take 1, and then in hero mode, he can have a max hand size of 7, which is the biggest generic hand size you can get without having like Avengers Mansion and stuff like that. So that's it, just a quick little rambling, some thoughts on gaining resource advantage. And I am driving, but I'm wearing the mask because nobody cared who I was before I put on the mask. So there you go. So that's it for me. Banana Crapshoot. Stay scheming, champions.